Welcome to online learning. Today we'll learn about the world from 1914 to 1945. And today's topics are the First World War and the interwar years. The first half of the 20th century changed the course of the world history. Two world wars were fought that caused huge devastation and loss of human life and materials. Entire cities had to be rebuilt. The world prayed for peace. The First World War was fought between 1914 and 1919, and the Second World War was fought between 1939 and 1945. The wars did not give us happy moments. Neither we gained something out of this, but we lost many lives and property. Cities like Hiroshima and Nagasaki of Japan and Berlin of Germany had to be rebuilt. The whole world prayed for world peace. The First World War, also called the Great War, lasted from 28 July 1914 to 11 November 1918. Many countries were involved in it. It was fought between two blocs, the Allied powers and the Central powers. So, who were the participants of Allied powers and that of Central powers? In the Allied powers, Great Britain, France, and Russia were there, whereas in Central powers the participants were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire, and Italy. What caused the war? In the 2 decades preceding the First World War, countries were competing against each other to develop and acquire weapons. Countries were also forming political and military alliances to protect themselves. In the 20th century, industrialization was flourishing in Europe. More industrialization will profit them more money and more development. To do so, they acquired weapons. Many countries had already formed political alliances. Take for example, in 1873 there was the League of Three Emperors. This was an alliance between German, Russian, and Austro-Hungarian empires. Then in 1882 there was again one alliance was there, and it was in between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. And again there was an alliance in 1914, and it was between Russian Empire, the French Third Republic, and the Great Britain. So these were some alliances which were responsible for having such a great war in 1914. The atmosphere in Europe was very tense. Then on 28 June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated by a Serbian. Soon Austria declared war on Serbia, as most countries had already formed alliances. They joined in to protect their allies. Battles were fought in different countries. In Europe, the fighting took place along the Western Front. This is Western Front. Here we have France and Belgium are there. And along the Eastern Front, that is from Russian side. Here we have Russia, and this is Eastern Front. The war was mostly fought from trenches. Soldiers dug open tunnels in the ground and they hit them and fired from there. So you can see these are trenches. Here also you can see trenches have been constructed and they're fighting from there. Machine guns and heavy artillery were used extensively. Tanks and poisonous gas were used for the first time in this war. German submarines called U-boats sank many ships of the Allied powers. This is U-boat, and you can see these are different type of poisonous gas which were used during First World War. India supported Britain in the hope that Britain would grant her self-government after the war. Indian soldiers fought in Europe, in Africa and in West Asia. Here you can see these are Indian soldiers, but they are fighting for Britain. They are fighting in support of Britain against German, Italy and against the countries of Central Powers. Asked for India's support. It was believed that after the First World War, Britain would grant self-government to us. The Indian leader believed that, and they allowed our soldiers to fight for Britain. They helped Britain in fighting against the Central Powers, but we were not given any self-government. When did the war end? The war ended in November 1918. The Allied powers emerged victorious. Both sides signed an armistice. So, what is this armistice? Armistice is like an application where you are signing and you are telling that after this you are not going to use any arm, or you are not going to continue your fighting against the Central Powers. So this was an armistice. The armistice of 11th November 1918 was the armistice signed at Le Francfort near Compiègne that ended fighting on land, sea and air in World War I between the Allies and their opponent Germany. Previous armistices had been agreed with Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You can see here, this is a paper clip. Here it is being shown. Armistice is signed, Germany surrenders. The interwar years. After the war, a peace conference was held in Paris. The Treaty of Versailles was signed between Germany and the Allied powers. Germany was blamed for the war and severely punished. This is also a paper clip where you can see treaty signed. War over. Wilson leaves Paris, sails Sunday. German pledged to act in good faith. The interwar years. After the war, a peace conference was held in Paris. The Treaty of Versailles was signed between Germany and the Allied powers. Germany was blamed for the war and severely punished. So, what is a treaty? A treaty is an official document that expresses that agreement in words. So, what were the terms of this Treaty of Versailles? The main terms of the treaty were as follows. Germany would have to pay heavy fine. It could not increase its military forces, and some of its territory were to be occupied by the Allied forces. Due to this, people of Germany become very angry, and we can say somehow this treaty led to the Second World War. The World War shook the world. To prevent such a war in future, the League of Nations was formed. Its objective was to solve disputes between countries and maintain world peace. But what happened? Let us see what happened. The years after the war were hard for the people of Europe. Then came the Great Depression in 1929. Trade suffered, factories and banks closed down, and millions of people lost their jobs. The effect was particularly severe in Europe and America. An economic depression is something like a trap. If once you have fall inside this, then it is very difficult for the countries to come out of this. The formation of the League of Nations did not bring peace to Europe. The period saw the rise of two dictators. Who were these? Benito Mussolini in Italy and Adolf Hitler in Germany. And Adolf Hitler, we can say, was the cause of Second World War. This is Adolf Hitler and this is Benito Mussolini. Hitler was the more ambitious of the two. He became the Chancellor in 1933. His ambition to turn Germany into a superpower plunged the world into another world war. He had seen what had happened with Germany after the First World War with the Treaty of Versailles, and After that, he thought that he must take revenge against the Allied powers, and it led to the Second World War. Now today's homework. When did the First World War start? Which two blocks were the participants in the First World War? When was Archduke Franz Ferdinand assassinated? When did the First World War end? Where did the Treaty of Versailles held? And name the two infamous dictators emerged after First World War. In our next class, we'll be learning about the infamous Second World War and what were the causes of it and how was this war fought. And also, when did the war end? When did the Second World War end? Thank you very much.